Today we're going to talk about President Donald Trump's second term and how it might affect different conflict zones around the world. I'm going to bring you guys today Professor Wang Mongyuan. He's my personal favorite. Okay, I love this guy. Let me try to summarize him. An extremely intelligent individual who claimed to have very, very high IQ, something like 200, who quit his job in an investment bank and spent the last 10-15 years trying to figure out how the US unipolar world works. And he wrote a lot of blogs and articles in Chinese. Let me put it this way. If you want to understand geopolitics today, this book right here, Super Imperialism by Michael Hudson, is a must read, okay? And you don't even need to buy this book. There's a online audiobook here on YouTube you can listen to. If you don't have time to listen to the entire book, at least listen to the introduction part. I think that is good enough for beginners. What Mr. Wang did over the last 10 years, I will say, is like getting this book and then expand for another 5 to 10 volumes, going into the details, how the US unipolar world works and how like MIC and how the financial sector, energy, and all these things interact with each other to form the entire global unipolar world structure, okay? So today what I'm going to do is that I'm going to translate to you guys a podcast he did before the US election, and he makes some interesting predictions and see if you guys agree with his logic, okay? Here we go. The United States is on the edge of losing its global hegemonic position. Although the United States is trying its best to maintain its position, the fall is irreversible. However, unlike Europe, in which candidates are often uniparty, both representing the establishment elites, the current US election is actually a battle between establishment and populace. In fact, the United States is one of the first major countries in the Western world who elected a populist candidate into power, Donald Trump, back in 2016. Today, both the war in Ukraine and the war in the Middle East is heavily affected by this presidential election in the US. And this is going to define how these wars will proceed in the coming months and years. Ukrainians are afraid of Trump pulling US support out of the war. The original intention of the United States, or the ultimate goal of the Ukraine war, is to hurt the US biggest geopolitical rivalry, China. And the United States decide to go for an easier target first, which is Russia, before going after the harder target, which is China. By striking Russia first, the United States can consolidate its influence, its power projection over the European Union. And after achieving its goal against Russia, it will move on to East Asia. Theoretically speaking, the United States can choose 4 different targets. Just last week, The Economist magazine manufactured a new phase, the Chaos 4. Shall we say that the Chaos 4 that threatens America, referring to China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. I've said it 2 years ago. The United States organized a hasty retreat from Afghanistan because it's already preparing the war in Eastern Europe against Russia. The Ukraine war is a war intentionally provoked by the United States of America and has been under planning for many, many years. The United States wanted to retreat from Afghanistan for many years because they have been there for 20 years already. They couldn't do it because the military-industrial complex would not let them. The only way to retreat from Afghanistan is that the US leadership must pick a new battlefield for the military-industrial complex to cash in. This logic still applies to today's scenario. Because if you look at Ukraine, they are heading towards a collapse. The most Ukraine can last is around a year to a year and a half. If Trump becomes president, the war will likely end within a year. If Kamala becomes president, it might last more than a year, but not much longer. The people who still believe Ukraine can win today and is willing to join their rank is equivalent of joining the KMT army back in 1949 in China. Well, for people who don't understand what this metaphor means, it's basically like in Western term, joining the Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany army back in, let's say, in 1945. So there's basically no hope. Let's continue here. So the United States leaving Ukraine behind is already a done deal. It's just a matter of how fast or slow. But before the United States leave Ukraine, it must find its next target. If you look at the new axis of evil, the Chaos 4, the most difficult target is China. Russia is second, followed by Iran and North Korea. The decision made 3 years ago was to take on Russia first, but things got horribly wrong for the United States. So who will be the next US target? Right now, as you can see, Israel is bouncing up and down, telling the United States to pick Iran. This is why the Middle East situation is escalating quickly, because Israel wants to redirect America's military aggression from Ukraine back to the Middle East. But what about China? Is it possible for the US to pick China as its next proxy war? Many people consider that would be a foolish idea for the United States to do. But it's always good to be cautious. So China is also putting forward a contingency plan. This is why the Chinese government decided to test launch missiles at the end of last month, the first test in 44 years. The missile Chinese military use is not the newest model, the DF-41, but an older version, the DF-31AG. So the test is not to examine new technology, So the test is not to try new technology, but to send a message. Send a message to who? Of course, not Taiwan. You don't need to fire a long-range missile if it is for Taiwan. Yes, President Lai of Taiwan said something reckless recently, but the military drill is enough. There's no need to test a long-range nuclear warhead-capable missile towards the Pacific. To me, China did this because China understands that Ukraine is going to lose the war very soon, and the United States will need a new target. So China must act ahead of time to show its capability to the US leadership to think twice before pick a fight against China. So behind this US presidential election is the grand stage of a geopolitical reshuffling event and the struggle against neo-colonialism. From the perspective of Russia and Putin, even though the victory is close, they need to still try its best to avoid NATO going crazy and enter the war directly. I have said it before. If NATO decided to enter the war directly, Russia might have to use tactical nuclear weapons, which might further lead to nuclear exchange. So this is something Russia needs to be very careful, not to make the mistake at the end to give NATO a reason to enter the war. This is one of the key reasons why Russia at the end of this September changed its nuclear doctrine from only against country with nuclear weapon to a country that is backed by other nuclear capable country, which is aimed at Ukraine, of course. If NATO decides to enter Ukraine, it must prepare for a nuclear war. So the situation is this. Israel wants US to militarily involve in the Middle East. Russia wants to end the Ukraine war and avoid direct war with NATO. China do not want war in its neighborhood, and the US need to continue the forever war. In my opinion, I think Iran smells what's coming. Alright, there's many things to talk about here. First, I want to talk about the election. I did a poll for my channel, and 300 of my audience participated in this poll. And as you can see, I don't have that many Kamala Harris supporters, only 9%. And after that is Donald Trump, 41%. But 50% of my audience who participated in this poll don't like neither of the candidate. All right. But there's something interesting here. Of all the Chinese geopolitical analysts that I follow, with any degree of understanding of the United States or the world, talks about the deep state. Okay, all of them accept that there's something called the deep state in the United States. However, okay, none of them, and this is a big statement, okay, none of them consider Donald Trump to be part of the deep state or a deep state candidate, not even one. And I have many Chinese audience, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? If you know any geopolitical analysts that consider, Trump to be part of the deep state, let me know. I can't find anyone, and I would like to listen to what his opinion is. But among my audience, okay, there are many of you guys who consider Trump to be part of the deep state. And many of you guys are pro-China, right? Or China-leaning, at least. Many of you guys also see that Trump is just part of the deep state establishment. And the channel you guys follow, because YouTube, tells me what channel you guys watch, that's why the algorithm send you guys to me. Those channel hosts also see, many of them, not all, many of them see that channel Donald Trump is just part of the deep state and there's not much different. That the difference is an illusion because BlackRock or something fund both of them, right? So I was trying to figure out what's going on here. Why do you guys think differently? Because to me, I don't think Trump is part of that deep state. He does not belong to neocon or neoliberal, right? That's something we can all agree. And let me put it this way to my audience. See if my audience agree with me, okay? A deep state puppet leader works like this, okay? Let me try. I'll try to put some image on the screen right now. There's this globalist transnational financial capital entity or entities that promote their candidates into different countries and organizations, and they do their bidding like a loyal puppet. So the relationship in that case is more like empire and colonial governor relationship, right? Trump, on the other hand, pursue more his own agenda, which can be different or the same compared to the deep states. And he doesn't have this agenda that he or US need to run other governments. Let me try to extend on that, okay? For example, there's no point for Justin Trudeau and President Kamala Harris, if she gets elected, to sit down and negotiate anything, because they are both assigned by the deep state, and they just need to get together and take picture and look good. They don't get to say much regarding to how the agreements are put together. You look at Kamala Harris and you can tell there's nothing in her brain. Same with Justin Trudeau, and it's kind of scary, to be honest, once you see the pattern. But when it comes to Trump, yes, he's still going to get heavily influenced by the deep state, but he probably has his own opinion and might not always go exactly with the deep state decision. For example, here, I think many of my audience mindset is that because Trump and Kamala are indifferent regarding to certain issue they concern or care about. For example, the genocide in Gaza, or their attitude towards China, for example, because there's barely any difference, and their policy towards those regions is not going to be that much different, according to you guys at least. They must both belong to the deep state. That's to me a faulty logic, okay? So you might ask me, well, what's the difference then? Is Trump going to do something different regarding anything? Quite a lot. I guess look at it this way, okay? China is a huge country, right? We have a lot of interests everywhere, not just in China, around China, but around the world. And let's say there's 100 different issues, okay? And between Kamala and Trump, for example, 80-90% of the issue and their decisions are going to be exactly the same, no different. Only 10-20% of the issue that Trump will act differently, decisively differently compared to Kamala Harris. To China, that's a lot already. But to some of my regular audience, you only care about maybe one or two issues, and those two issues just so happen that Kamala and Trump is indifferent. And that makes you feel like, well, they're both the deep state. There's no different. There's no alternative. And that, your vote doesn't matter. Democracy and who gets elected doesn't matter for you. But for China, it doesn't matter. So I said it before, the majority of the Chinese geopolitical analysts is pro-Trump because dealing with Trump is easier than dealing with the deep state establishment. So the deep state will send, for example, CIA after you if there's a disagreement, but Trump probably will not send CIA after you, or CIA will actually go after Trump in this case. There are also many other core differences. I will say that, for example, the deep state is anti-sovereignty state itself, not just against other country, but also against US, as you can see with the border crisis along the Mexico-US border. And Trump is not anti-sovereign state. That's how we see it. But there are much deeper philosophical points here to make, but maybe for another video, not this one. I said it before, I don't really like either candidate, but between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, I will probably, if I get to vote, I will vote for Donald Trump, as I said it before. Doesn't matter, of course, right now Donald Trump is the president, but if you have to put up, for example, a metaphor, what would it be? Getting Kamala Harris into the White House is like a train, okay? With a huge carriage filled with people and countries in it, all right, heading towards a cliff in slow motion. That's what, voting Kamala Harris is. And, Kamala Harris will go into the carriage and then put on like a lullaby and start dancing and laughing. That's what a Kamala Harris president is for 4 years. For Trump, you have the same train with the same carriage heading toward the same cliff. But it feels like what Trump is going to do is that he's going to walk into the carriage, hold up a huge pile of poop, okay? And he's gonna throw towards the ceiling with like a spinning fan and see what happens. That's what Trump president is gonna feel like. So we're going to go through some interesting, shit over the next 4 years, basically. I mean, who knows? Maybe it's not a bad thing because, with poops all over the body, people might start to wake up and really start to look at the world in a more realistic way and start fixing the problems. Okay, regarding what Professor Wong said here, first of all, he predicted the Trump victory 100% unless, that's what he said, unless there's some magical bullet or, the establishment went really hard to not get him elected. But from my point of view, this is not a victory yet. I think Donald Trump's battle just begun, and we'll see how this play out over the next 4 years. And that's if he can survive the next 4 years. We never know what will happen. I think one of the core differences regarding me and some of my audience on whether Trump is deep state or not is that Chinese understand politics and power differently from, let's say, regular people here in the West. When we see a Western election, especially when talking about recent election, there's all this glorify about democracy. We have this smooth and peaceful transition of power. In reality, I will have to say, there's really not that much power being transferred to begin with, or at all in some cases. It's just changing of different puppet. So if you look at, for example, Biden, and then if Kamala become president after Biden, you have this 100% power transfer from Biden to Kamala. For Chinese, if that is how it goes, it's like zero power being transferred. The power still belongs to the deep state. But if Donald Trump become elected, which he did right now, it's more feel like Donald Trump wants, perhaps, if you consider the total power of United States, 100%, then he wants something like 5 or 10% or 20% power back from the establishment to the presidency, to the White House, that he and his team actually get to decide. So to us, it is Donald Trump trying to fight to get some of that power back into a president's hand, in which, for the last 30, 40 years, there's really not that many power in the president's hand to begin with, or the president is just more like a clownish figure trying to look good. So for people who complain that, well, you look at Trump in his first presidency between 2016 to 2022, he done nothing major, so he's just lying and he's a deep state. Our argument is that, when he become president, he never mean to have any power to begin with. And over the 4 years, he tried to get some of that power and tried to do something, and he fell miserably. And the same thing you can apply to China, for example, when Xi Jinping came to power. So when President Xi became president back in 2012, did he have any power at the beginning, on the first day? Not really. It took him 10 years for Chinese, really hardcore Chinese geopolitical analysts who study domestic issue. Xi Jinping really didn't gain full power until 10 years after. He has to be very cautious, with the other entities, forces around him, and when he tried to do something, he know there are powerful entities who try to stop him. He need to carefully remove them one by one. And he done that over 10 years, a decade, in order to consolidate that power. So even when you look at a country in which a president like Xi Jinping, it will take a long time for him to actually reach his full potential for power. Why are you looking at, for example, United States and expect so much from the president? The US president doesn't have that much power to begin with. And Trump, if deep state want to do 20 things, it will be impressive if Trump can stop 2 of them, let's say, and have the deep state do something else, or try to do something else. For us, that's already an achievement. But I guess many of the friends here, Western friends here, have a unrealistic way of looking at today's democracy and how government is run, and they expect too much, and they feel like every president is a puppet, which in many ways is true. But from us Chinese, we can see which president is kind of like a pure full puppet, and which one is trying to maneuver power around and try to do some good or do something that he wants. And it's not fair to compare, European presidents and prime ministers and US president to that of, let's say, Putin or Xi or Kim Jong-un. It's not fair comparison. The system is not built that way.
What is wrong with you? I can't do this anymore. I'm literally sick. I'm literally sick to my stomach. What has happened to America? What has happened to democracy? What has happened to freedom? I'm done. This is a message to anyone who follows me. If you voted for Trump, unfollow me and block me. If you didn't vote, unfollow me and block me. The fact that it's this close means I've lost all hope in the American people.
So according to Mr. Wong, President Trump here, as of today, okay, is probably not going to break the tradition, okay, of military-industrial complex and this forever war things, and he has to pick a secondary battlefield or new war in order for the MIC to profit. He cannot just end Ukraine war and not start a new one. And if he doesn't do that, he might end up like, you know, yeah. And for me and for many Chinese, this kind of thinking, mindset, and logic is very common. And I find it very uncommon in the West here when I talk to other people. It's common not just in China, it's around the world, history-wise. If you look at, for example, I always like to make this example of Turkey, Erdogan. And you know how US tried many times to coup Turkey and try to turn Turkey into a more subordinate, ally. And it failed. And what Erdogan did back in, I think, 2016 and 17 is that instead of blocking the United States, Turkey at the time decided to work with United States and went into Syria. I think it's one of the strategy. If you cannot efficiently block a more powerful entity in forcing you to trying to do something, might as well join them and then channel that pressure towards something else. I won't suggest the same thing, okay? Doesn't matter how you see Russia and China. Maybe Russia is powerful enough to win the war in Ukraine, and China is powerful enough to win a war over Taiwan or stop the war from even happening. But neither of this country is able to stop the United States from pursuing a different economic model, which is this military-industrial complex model. And the best way is not to stop it, but try to prevent it happening around them. And this might motivate them to try to perhaps diverse US and the MIC's attention towards another continent, into another zone. I think many Russians will agree with me that it will be beneficial for a United States to start a proxy war over Taiwan or over Philippines with the Chinese, because that will take pressure away from Ukraine and also make Chinese less likely to dump Russia in this current alliances. Will make the alliance even stronger. So there's incentive for President Putin to say maybe a war over Taiwan between China and US is beneficial for the Russian. So here, maybe you can try to look at it in a different way, that whether it's China, Xi, or Russia, Putin, or even Donald Trump here in the United States, all these people actually cannot stop the MIC and the deep state from starting another war. What they can do is try to come to an agreement to achieve something while accepting the establishment doing something that they do not like. Maybe that's the most what Donald Trump can achieve, which is already better than, let's say, a pew puppet, which will just be like yes, yes, yes to everything. So this is how we see it. To end this video, I want to use this opportunity to get some feedback from my audience, all right? I'm going to conduct another poll here, link in the description. During Trump's presidency over the next 4 years, what will happen in terms of major conflicts, okay? A, Ukraine war will continue. No other major war in other regions, okay? B, Ukraine war will end. A major Middle East war will start, probably with Iran or with someone else. C, Ukraine war will end. A war against China, somewhere in Asia, will start in some way. D, Trump is able to stop Ukraine war and prevent any other major war from happening. And then finally, E, something else major will happen not mentioned here. Tell me what you think, okay? I will see you guys in the next video.